Hi, I'm Mark Clayton, CEO of SMARTreview Incorporated, and I'm going to show you a new way of addressing building code compliance issues during the architectural design process by using BIM and the SMARTreview APR software. The impacts of the building code upon the building form can be made evident and visualized when using building information modeling. Our innovative software, SMARTreview APR, provides expertise while you design to help you to achieve a building that complies with the International Building Code, the IBC. The takeaway from this presentation is that managing a code compliance strategy for a building is made easier and more explainable by BIM tools and SMARTreview APR. So APR is an add-in to the Autodesk Revit to guide the designer in producing a building design. Our software helps the designer to add relevant information to the BIM and then sends information to a cloud service that checks the BIM against rules for compliance. The results are reported back to the designer as advice embedded within the building code and as annotations on the BIM. Our software automatically checks your design against provisions of the code from chapters 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. These deal with general building heights and areas, types of construction, fire and smoke protection features, interior finishes, and means of egress. This is a lot of what architects are concerned with as they develop the form and space of the building. So at the very early stages of design, in conceptual design, we're often worried about the building size, the location on site, the construction type, and the arrangement of rooms for proper egress. All of these things affect whether this design will be compliant or not. An example is often the best way to get the ideas across. So this video is focused on a schematic design of a hotel from the first steps of positioning the building on the site to laying out the rooms and exit. Here's our design scenario. The client's concept is a 4-story hotel with low-cost construction. It has 70 rooms and a total 44,000 square feet gross building area, or about 11,000 square feet per floor. The decisions that we're going to have to deal with include, first, deciding on a strategy to get the building size, area, occupant load, height, number of stories, as the client wishes. Second, we need to get the egress system right. We need to decide on location of doors, exit discharge, door swing direction, and so on for the particular room layout that we come up with. Then the third step is to decide on fire ratings based on construction type and decide on window arrangement based on fire separation distance. At each step, one can produce visualizations and drawings to illustrate the decisions driven by code. So here we are back in Revit, and we simply start drawing this model, start drawing our building. It would be kind of typical to start with a topo surface, and you can see I've got a property line here. And I've also drawn some reference lines, and I'm going to use these to control the size of my building and for kind of rapidly resizing the building and shaping it. So I've actually named these reference lines north facade, east facade. You don't have to name them, but it can be a good strategy to have them named. Now, using Revit, your model is parametric, and if I set it up carefully, it can flex to adjustments in size or even accommodate major changes in design concept. So I'm going to start by creating a mass object to control the size of this building. So I've got massing turned on, and I'm just going to create an in-place mass. I'm going to call it main building. Perhaps there'll be another building, but and I'm just going to draw a really simple rectangle and click on that, and I'm going to create form, and I'm going to lock the profiles. That'll mean that the profile that defines the top of the building is the same as the profile that defines the bottom. And I can just say finish mass, and I've got my mass. Now next I'm going to lock the edges of my mass to these reference planes. And then when I move the reference planes, the mass will reshape too. So like that. Now, for this scenario, I want to play around with getting really close to the property line. So I'm going to move this one really close to the property line just to make it cause some errors later on. And then you can see that I've got a nice 3D mass. Look at it in 3D. But I can also play around with the width of this mass. I want it to be precisely 56 feet wide because that's what my client says should be the width of the building. And I think it's a little bit too big here, so I'm going to change the length to 200 feet. And I've got a pretty good mass representing the building. And you see, if we go back to the site, you can see there's a lot of open space for parking on that side, and not much space on the east side. Now, my next step is to create some mass floor objects. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to click on mass floors, and then I can just pick level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. And I've got my mass floors. And that reminds me that my elevations probably aren't quite right. So I'm going to go to the elevation view and click on the mass and pull that down to the roof level. And I'm going to pull the bottom down to the grade level, like that, and lock it there. So now I've got a mass to represent the building. Now, APR can run a plan review on a very simple Revit model, a very simple BIM, but it has to have a few basic objects in it. So it has to have floors, walls, a roof, property lines, levels, rooms, areas, doors, and windows. But with those elements, and stairs, if you have got a multi-story building, with those elements, you can run a good plan review with respect to the International Building Code. So now I'm back in Revit, and I'm going to add those elements to my model. By using the wall by face and the floor by face and those tools, can add them very quickly. So I'm going to go to floor architectural. It's not the right one. I'm going to go to floor by face, and I'm going to pick a floor. And you'll see that I've built in a lot of floors that are helpful for developing a building code compliance strategy. But right now I'm just going to take this 4-inch 0-hour floor, and I'm going to add it to each of my mass floors and pick create floor, and I just created those floors. I'm going to do the very similar thing with the walls. So I'm going to go to wall by face. I'm going to pick, instead of the interior one, I'm going to find an exterior 4-inch 0-hour, and I'm going to place these walls around the building, and just to make sure it looks good, I'm going to spin it some. Looks like I've got those walls all the way around. And then I'm going to go to roof by face, and the same way pick a really simple 4-inch 0-hour C-flame spread roof and place it on the top of the mass and create mass. So, or create that roof. So I quickly created a basic building that I can actually run a plan review on and start getting some feedback about whether this building is a reasonable size or not with respect to the code. So if I go to to run my plan review, I'll go to the add-in menu and I'll pick APR, and the software launches and does a few calculations and collects some information and presents me this view. So this is the configuration panel. If I click on, I first need to basically configure the building. So I'll click on Building and Concepts, and I can see I can set the occupancy to be R1, which is appropriate for a hotel. Cheapest possible construction would be 5B, so I'm going to leave it at 5B. And hotels are always required to have a sprinkler, so I'm going to add a 13R sprinkler. And then I can check my height values. I see that the level associated with the grade plane is my level called grade. Level associated with the first story is level 1, and the level associated with the highest roof is top, so that I can find the height of the building from that. Now, if I go to stories, you can see it's found the 4 stories of the building, and at least one story has to be a level of exit discharge. So I just click the check, highlight it, click the check box, click apply, and now it's relabeled as a level of exit discharge. Now, that's all I have to do to run a initial plan review. So I'm going to go to the Analysis menu and click Start APR Analysis, and it will run a plan review. Now, here's the APR software. You see that it presents information in terms of the IBC. I can collapse that and actually see that the information is also presented in terms of architectural elements. But right now I want to look at the IBC. You can see that some items in the IBC are labeled in red. Those are the ones that failed. Ones that are in black passed. So if we look at height, we could pull up height, and we see the building code itself as an excerpt with table 504.3 that sets the height. But down here at the bottom, it shows what the analysis is. And it says that it's 43 feet tall, and that does not exceed the 60 feet allowed for an R1 occupancy type 5B construction and sprinkler. So that's okay. However, the number of stories is a problem. And similarly, it shows the excerpt from the code, and it shows the analysis down here. So it's 4 stories, and we're only allowed 3 stories with a 5B construction. I can verify that by looking here in the table, R1, 5B construction, 13R sprinkler system. I can get 3 stories. If I go to type 5A construction, I can get 4 stories. So that gives me a way of getting a solution for this. And I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to go to Concept and change it to a 5A construction and run the analysis again. And we wait a moment while it sends it off to the cloud and gets my answers back. So I scroll up here, and now my number of stories is good. So just as we expected, now I can have 4 stories with type 5A construction. However, there's a problem with the allowable area determination. And if I go to area here and look at the building code and look at the analysis, it says my allowable area from the table is 12,000 square feet, and it is not adjusted. I have a area increase factor here. So the area increase factor is 0 right now, so I am only allowed 36,000 square feet for this building, and I've got 44,800. So I need to find a strategy for fixing that. Now, one way to fix that is to allow open space around my building, and I've actually designed the building with open space around it, around 3 sides. So I'm going to do that. But before I do that, back in Revit, I'm going to add names to these walls. It makes it easier to find the names in a long, or find the wall that I'm looking for in a long list of walls if I have a name. I can't remember the Revit IDs. So find them and adjust parameter values. So I name them, and I'll go back to the APR and run it again. I don't need to change any of this. It actually stored all that information in the Revit model. So if I run it later, it'll still be there. If I run it tomorrow, if I give it away, it's still there in the Revit model. But I'll start my APR analysis. And I've got that failure. Single occupancy, mixed story is a problem. If I go to configuration, I can change the frontage. So the west frontage, let's make that, say, 60 feet of parking lot on that side. The south, we've got 50 feet of parking lot. On the east, we've got only 2 feet of open space. And on the north, let's put 60 feet of parking lot over there too. So you can see now it's actually done an area factor increase due to frontage of 64%. So I'll go back and run my analysis again, and it will try this area increase against the rules stored on the cloud server. And yes, this time we've got a mixed occupancy, 1-story, and a single occupancy, multi-story, and we can have a building up to 59,000 square feet. So using the APR, we were quickly able to get a placement on the site, a number of stories, and a construction type that is going to make this building work. So as a quick kind of summary, using BIM and APR, we were able to define the building size, allowable area, allowable height, allowable number of stories. The constraints on those are the occupancy classification, which is fixed by your client, the construction type, the presence of sprinklers, the existence, width, and length of a public way or open space adjacent to the building. More aspects of APR.